All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today for our Glassdoor webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the DNA of a best place to work and what it means to become a best place to work. Couple webinar tips for all of you. Make sure that you can hear me. You can join using your audio in your computers, microphone, and speakers, or go ahead and dial in using that telephone conference number. You will all be muted just so we can avoid some of that background noise. And absolutely throughout this entire presentation, please enter your questions into the question pane, and we will get to as many of those as we can by the end of today's session. All right, we have two amazing featured speakers today. Joining us from Glassdoor is Joe Wiggins, and he is the head of European Communications. And joining us from the #1 best place to work in the UK is Con Marnie, and he is the talent advisor at Expedia, and we could not be more thrilled to have Expedia joining us today. Quick look at what we're going to talk about. So we're going to run through kind of what it means to become a best place to work, kind of set the stage for how we created this awesome list, and then we're going to jump right into the DNA. What makes a best place to work? What are those traits that you can look for and you can start figuring out how to implement them in your own companies. And then at the end, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Con and hear what Expedia did and find out some of the cool things that they've been doing to ensure their #1 spot on our UK Best Places to Work list. And as I mentioned, we will go ahead and wrap up with Q&A. So please enter those questions in. And now, I would like to go ahead and quickly pass things on over to you, Joe Wiggins, to take it away.
Thanks, Shay, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. So I'm just going to take you through a few slides, as Shay said, just exploring some of the kind of the common traits that we see amongst the companies that tend to be singled out as best places. But first of all, where did this all start? Well, Glassdoor started around about 8 years ago. We first launched in 2008, and our founders set out to accomplish one simple mission, and that's to help people everywhere find a job in a company that they love. And with the launch of Glassdoor, employees kind of really for the first time had a platform to anonymously share feedback on their experience working for an employer, and also job seekers finally had an outlet to kind of get this critical information about a company before applying or interviewing or accepting an offer. And previously, unless you really knew someone at the company, it would be virtually impossible to get a feel for company culture and the leadership team and career opportunities. So on the next slide, you'll see as I say, how it started. We actually set up Best Places to Work as one of the kind of first things that we did when we launched Glassdoor, and we wanted to acknowledge companies that are doing really, really well and celebrate them and set an example for other companies who were focused on establishing a kind of a winning culture, if you like. So Best Places to Work initially was in the US, and then we expanded it to include the UK, which we've done a couple of years, and most recently in France and Germany and Canada as well. And every year, thousands of companies are eligible based on reviews for the prior 12-month period. And the ones that rise to the top have certain recurring themes that we look at both quantitatively in terms of ratings, but also qualitatively in terms of the text reviews and what people are actually saying and the themes that are cropping up. We look entirely at employee feedback, including job satisfaction and company satisfaction, just to make it easier for job seekers to identify the right fit. Now, why does this matter? Well, we know, because we have polled Best Places to Work companies, that 86% of them use Glassdoor reviews to keep their finger on the pulse, to keep a real-time kind of monitoring on company culture. Now, employees can be your greatest ambassadors and a really useful source of feedback on what's working or where you can improve. And we find particularly that Best Places to Work winners really pay attention to the feedback that they're getting through Glassdoor. So 3 of the most common myths, if you like, about best places to work, or indeed companies that win. Firstly, that you need to be a tech company to be on the list. Well, that's not true at all. In fact, the majority of companies on Best Places to Work list are not tech companies, and most recently in the UK we had a real diversity of industries represented, including some tech, of course, but also retail, engineering and banking as well. The other misconception is that you need to be a sexy brand to be a winner here, and that's not true. And I actually had a really interesting conversation with a company a few weeks ago that was close to being on the top 25 in the UK, but they didn't quite make it, and they were worried that this was kind of somehow influenced by their brand. But it's nothing to do with that at all. It's really our Employees' Choice Awards are based purely on the ratings and reviews on our site, and not all companies have what you might call cool brands. For example, take a look at some of this year's winners: Arup and Amec Foster Wheeler, essentially engineering brands, and then you've got companies like Shell and Credit Suisse and Kantar, who are all admired companies and certainly respected brands, but not what you would call a sexy brand. And the year before we had BP, EY, HSBC and GlaxoSmithKline, so it's a huge variety of companies that can feature here. And the third thing that people sometimes say is, they'll never make it onto the list because they don't have the means to provide extravagant perks. Well, employee satisfaction is not entirely based on perks or money or unlimited annual leave or anything like that. Career growth and transparency of the leadership team can have a huge impact, and we'll see that coming through on the next few slides. So dealing with 5 of the most common traits of Best Places to Work winners. First one, people matter. And the first thing you tend to notice about Best Place to Work is that employees are at the heart of the matter. Now, we know that job seekers tend to read between 4 and 7 reviews before forming an opinion of a company. So what your employees are saying on Glassdoor really it has a significant impact on reputation. And your company is only as good as the people that it's made of, and good people attract other good people. In fact, employee referrals are the best source of hires. It's extremely important to hear from these people and to encourage your people to leave honest feedback on Glassdoor. And if you treat people well, they'll talk positively about you. So a quick checklist or action plan, if you like, on this trait of people matter. Find people that enhance your culture, have high standards when it comes to hiring. Make sure you hire people that are the right fit, and don't let candidate quality be sacrificed. At the end of the day, the success of your company is going to be based on people, not on strategies. So the second trait that we see quite often is that people feel like their voice is heard. So you can achieve transparency by listening to your employees, and in order to become best place to work, there has to be transparency from top to bottom of an organization. It's impossible to achieve that without listening to your employees. So take the time to show that you care by listening to what they have to say. And an action plan, if you like, on trait 2 is that average companies simply send surveys to get feedback, but the best companies close the loop on their strategy and they seek to fix any problems. So send company surveys and really take that feedback to heart. No company is perfect, and there's always room to improve. And use this feedback as free advice on how to make your company better. Trait number 3, people can grow. Now, we've talked about people at the heart of your organization, and employees are most engaged when they're not stagnant. So the number 2 reason that candidates accept a job offer after salary is career growth. And this is one of the things that came through really strongly this year, particularly with the Best Places to Winners in the UK, was the ability to grow and to develop a career and the availability of really good training. And it's one thing that I saw in many of the reviews for Expedia, our number 1 best place to work. So at this point, I'd just like to maybe ask Con for his views on career opportunities and training and development at Expedia on what they do in that area.
Hi Joe, thanks for that, and thanks to everyone for joining today. So here at Expedia, career development is something which we do take very seriously. So around 2 years ago, we actually changed the way that we monitor performance and career growth, and we've implemented what we call a P2P performance schedule. So what we tended to find is that some companies only really talk around career growth when it comes to annual review time, and that's something we've actually taken and completely changed. So P2P reviews happen every single month throughout the year. You're constantly sitting down with your manager to discuss performance, discuss the next goals, and we did see a great surge in not only people wanting to actually stay in satisfaction, but things, for example, like employee referral program referrals went through the roof during that time when we first implemented it. So to give you an example, we've got someone who we always use as a bit of a cover girl, if you like, for Expedia and career growth. So one of our senior product directors actually joined Expedia 13 years ago. So she joined as a data entry temp, and through that time she was nurtured, and she's now one of our senior directors who's responsible for rolling out some of our biggest products worldwide. So we do take it very seriously, and we do see it as being one of the #1 traits as to why people do want to stay with us.
Cool, thanks, Tom. So an action plan, if you like, for making sure that career development is at the heart of what you're doing. Average companies, will simply approve training. They'll keep employees in the same role. But the best companies like Expedia will present new challenges and career opportunities to keep employees engaged, and they'll actively use that kind of action plans very, very regularly. So work with employees to discover what training is going to be beneficial, and doing this together will show that you're invested in advancing people's careers. Now, the fourth trait that we see is that is strong leadership, and that leaders matter. So some of the common themes that come through with our highest rated CEOs on Glassdoor are things like a clear vision for the future, motivating employees, very personable, very approachable. So employees are looking for these values from their leader. They want to make sure there's trust and transparency, starting from the top. And there is quite a strong correlation between highest rated leaders and best places to work. Recently we saw, for example, Caroline McCall of EasyJet was in the top 5 CEOs of Glassdoor, and EasyJet, with no coincidence that they appeared on this year's Best Places to Work as well. And the fifth trait that is very common amongst Best Places to Work are that people feel appreciated. And on the next slide, we'll see that perks do help build a sense of pride amongst employees. And they can be very, very important, and you want the employees to brag about the work environment and feel proud of where they work. But the things that really motivate employees, #1 is a pay rise, perhaps unexpectedly. But #2 is 46% of people said that unexpected treats, and it doesn't need to be extravagant, as I say. The third thing is being involved in the decision-making process. And then 1 in 3 people said that opportunities for career development, like we were just saying, extremely important. And also a third of people say that recognition of accomplishments is extremely motivating. So employees want to work hard, and these are the things that tend to motivate them. So in a recent study, we looked at the question of salary and satisfaction. And we looked at over 220,000 reviews who contributed content to Glassdoor. And we found that salary does have an impact on job satisfaction, but it's actually quite small. So a 10% boost in salary leads to a 1-point increase in job satisfaction. So in other words, if you were making 70,000 a year, got a raise to 77,000, the satisfaction would move from 78 points to 79, which would be pretty hard to detect in our 5-point scale on Glassdoor. So where does pay rank compared to other drivers? Actually, salary is not at the top of the list. So in fact, it's close to the bottom. So things like culture and values and career opportunities and senior leadership are far more significant in terms of contributing to an employee's satisfaction. work-life balance, compensation, benefits, and business outlook are less likely to impact satisfaction. Now, why does this matter? Well, listening to your workforce allows you to identify problem areas in real time, but it's not just employees and candidates that are reading Glassdoor reviews. It's a much wider group of stakeholders, so it could be customers, it could be partners, it could be shareholders, investors, and how satisfied your employees are is a leading indicator of how successful your company is going to be, and other people know this. And company satisfaction is associated with better company financial performance, and our research shows that there is a clear correlation here. And one of the projects or reports that we did, led by our chief economist Andrew Chamberlain, discovered that actually best places to work companies outperformed the Standard & Poor's 500 stock index by over 100%. We also discovered that low-rated companies underperform by nearly 30%. So essentially what we're saying here is that if you'd invested in a portfolio that included the best places to work, as identified by Glassdoor, the share price, the value would be 122% higher than average. So what I wanted to do now is hand over to Con, just to talk a little bit about how Expedia does it, bring some of these things to life.
Thanks, Joe, and thanks for inviting us to take part in this webinar today. So I think what I'd like to do first of all is just give you guys on the call a little bit of an overview about Expedia, as we're quite a big company, we do have quite a few brands, and I think some people do get surprised about some of the brands we actually do have in our portfolio. So essentially, my role here at Expedia is that I look after two of our biggest brands. So I look after what we call brand Expedia, which is essentially the online travel agency part of Expedia, and now one of our newer companies called eBookers. But we're part of a much wider group. So within our portfolio, we have brands such as Hotels.com, Venerage, Fargo, Agencia. We're very big on acquisitions. We acquired quite a few new companies last year, including Travelocity and Motif.com. So we have quite a few brands within our reach now. So my journey with Expedia really started about 5 years ago when I was working in an agency recruitment environment. And when I was agency side, one thing that I noticed is that I partnered with quite a lot of the big e-commerce brands. So I won't name them, but if you think of a marketplace type environment, that was one of my biggest customers. And one thing which I found when I compared those with Expedia is that our acceptance rates were consistently high. Our feedback was consistently high, and it always did intrigue me that we clearly have a quite solid interview structure, but it always intrigued me what makes those guys stand out so much differently to another company that I'm representing, particularly when we had two competing offers. So I joined here around 10 months ago, and I can certainly say that it's one of the best places that I've ever worked. And I think that comes from a lot of different things. So the first thing which you mentioned on the slide is that it's not just a job working here, it's a lifestyle. And I think a lot of that derives by working for a travel e-commerce company presents a lot of different challenges to working with another e-commerce brand. So we're based in Angel in North London, so we're fairly close to the likes of Facebook, Google, Amazon. We have Old Street just down the road, so we have the startup scene as well. But I think working for a travel brand, what makes us really special is the fact that we are impacted by so many different things. So to give you an example, right now, look outside your window. It's raining, it's dull, it's dreary. I don't think there's any other industry in the e-commerce space that is so affected by the weather than us. So we've noticed this month, for example, we've had a 27% rise in new packaged holidays going away for winter sun. So I think that's a lot of what actually makes us quite special when compared to other e-commerce companies. And I think that's really bred through the people we have here. They do see that change, they do really embrace it. So we just go to the next slide. So how we do it. So there's quite a lot of different things on here which I wanted to discuss, but one thing which is really important to us is this notion of being one team, and whether you work in product, technology, marketing, finance, you'll find and you'll certainly hear the word one team being mentioned a lot. Now, by one team, I think what we mean is that all of our business units interact very closely together, and we're all working towards one common goal. So yes, you might be an FP&A manager, for example, working on something in finance. You may be a product developer rolling out a new feature on the website. So for example, our checkout page, but we're all aiming towards that one common denominator. So something which is very hot on the agenda at the moment is to talk about diversity. And when I first joined, I joined a project very early on in my time here at Expedia to kind of look at diversity and particularly the women in tech piece, which I'm sure if you Google it, you'll see a number of different companies talking about that at the moment. When I joined, something that really struck me straight away is that whilst we do talk about being diverse, we've almost flipped that on its side. We've actually now talked about inclusion. So the reason why we've done that is if you look around where you're sitting right now or when you're on the tube or something, everyone's different. So there's no one norm what we're looking for. So we talk about inclusion. So what that means is that regardless of race, social creed, sexuality, gender, etc., everyone's inclusive here. And we're very, very open about that in terms of what we do. And it's something which we do echo when we do recruit for talent. And I've had that recommended and commented on quite a few times when we actually do recruit. So let me give you an example. We had someone apply for a role that was about 6 months ago. He sent through his CV through the normal channels. I sent him an email and said, hey, let's have a conversation. And he sent me an email back and said, look, I'd love to have a conversation with you, but unfortunately, I'm hearing impaired. I can't use the phone. I understand if you don't want to take this forward. And that really, really struck something with me because I was really taken aback that someone felt that because they did have the disability, they couldn't be considered for a role with us. So what we've done in that instance is we've worked very closely with the Royal Society of Deaf to make sure that what we were doing was still a very rigorous assessment. We were still making sure that he could do what he said he could do, but making it in such a way that he didn't feel that he was being discriminated and he felt comfortable and he felt that we were accommodating him. And one thing that he did say when thankfully he accepted the job with us and he's doing very well is that we are one of the only companies that have done that for him recently. So he went and interviewed with a bank and he had to pay for someone to actually come with him to sign so he could understand the interview and follow it. So I think it's things like that that we do make sure we run with here at Expedia, and it is very much echoed in our recruitment process. And that obviously goes on to make sure that when they do join, they are going to remember that. They are going to remember they were included and they were accommodated for. Something which is really big for us as well is the difference between a hire and talent. So the way that I look at the two is that a hire is just someone who's coming to do their 9 to 5:30 job. One thing I will say is that's fine with us. You know, we are quite open about the fact that we are a work hard, play hard culture. Because we're such a global company, there will be instances where you might have to jump on the phone at 10 o'clock, etc. But if you do that, that's cool. Come in late the next day. What I see as being the difference between a hire and talent is those guys who really want to change something. So let me give you an example. I recently did an interview with The Independent I think it was about 3 months ago, and the reporter said to me, okay, so I assume that people who want to come and work here have to be young. And I said, well, no, that's not the case at all. Why do you think that? And he said, well, working for a global brand, having to do late night calls, etc. I suppose it does take its toll. And well, of course it does. But as I said, if someone's leave at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to go and pick their kids up, that's fine. Just come and do it the next day or work from home for a couple of hours, etc. And I think that's what we really do distinguish between being a hire and being talent. So talent are those people who do want to make a difference. So regardless of where you work at Expedia, so whether you work in HR, analytics, finance, product, it doesn't particularly matter, but you are empowered to make a difference. Now, in terms of the type of stuff that we do, it might not necessarily be things which you will see. So what I want to do is I want to give you a couple of examples about that. So we can just go to the next slide. So I think a lot of the reason why our employees are so happy here is that we have this test and learn culture. So essentially what a test and learn culture means here at Expedia is that if you're going to fail, that's fine. So let's fail fast. So to give you a couple of examples of that. So in technology, a lot of what we do is what we call dark releases. So I recruit for a team called Checkout and Offer Services, and essentially what these guys do is they are the cash register of Expedia. So it's these guys who take the money, they process transactions, they hold customer data. And we have anywhere between 10 to 50 dark releases on that page alone every single month. The reason why we do it in the dark is that if it doesn't necessarily work, that's fine. No one's going to see it. But we will give you the opportunity to try and go out and do new ideas. And I think from that, a lot of what we do is spurred on by our offsites, our social interactions, our social perks. So let me give you an example. So we was having an offsite last year, and there was someone who just said, look, I want to bring something up in front of the team. A major airport who we work with, someone who our customers can book flights with, we had a lot of negative feedback regarding baggage. And this guy said it, and it wasn't just a case of, oh, okay, I see what you mean. It was right, let's change that. So we spent some money on it, we rolled it out, and it's something that was changed very quickly. So I think not only are we at the forefront of actually empowering our employees to do stuff, it's one of these environments where you are encouraged to do things. So to give you an example, when I first joined, I took over someone who had been doing the role for a very long time, and I came in, I saw things which were working really well, I saw things which needed to be changed, and my boss was very open and said, do you know what, go and do it. If it doesn't work, that's fine, we can always try again, but you do feel very much like you are empowered to do things here. And I think if you look through some of the reviews on Glassdoor, there's a couple of things that really do resonate. So I think the first is that you are empowered to do things. People have noted that we are a work hard, play hard type culture. You are expected to get your stuff done when you're here at the same time, but we treat people like adults. So to give you an example, if you are working up until 10 o'clock in the evening, that's fine, work from home the next day. If you're jet lagged and coming back from holiday, that's fine, log on a little bit later. It's a type of environment where we very much do trust our employees to do what they say they can do. And I think that really does breed a really healthy working environment. So we just go on to the next slide. So working for a travel company, as much as it sometimes can be a bit of a pain at times, but we do look after our staff very well. And I think when we are recruiting for people, you don't necessarily have to have a love of travel, but I think if you do, this is going to be somewhere where you will get on really well. And it's something we do recognise in our benefits package. So every employee at Expedia London will get what we call a travel allowance. So that is a guaranteed non-performance piece of compensation which you are paid on top of your basic salary. You don't necessarily have to spend that on travel, that's absolutely fine, but we want you to go out there, we want you to see the world. But more importantly, we don't want you to burn yourself out. We want you to actually take some time, go away, have a nice holiday, switch off from your email, shut down your laptop. Because when you're here, we know you're working at 110%. We want you to go and have that chill time as well. Coming back to the point I said earlier on, we very much do treat our staff like adults. So flexible working, that's absolutely fine. If you need to go and pick your children up from school, or around Christmas you need to pop out for a nativity play, etc., that's absolutely fine. Because we are such a global company, something we do offer, which I think some of our competitors will struggle with, is a global rotation program. So this is something which is open to all employees from the first day that they start. So we tend to like our employees to be in their jobs for around 6 months before we implement this, but if there's a business reason, we can expedite that. So the way this works is that we are very open about roles which we are recruiting for. We're very open about opportunities overseas. We have something which is called Jobs Just In, which goes out every single week, which is very, so if you see something on there that you like the look of, you apply for it and we can get you out there. In terms of the social events, again, I think this is something which is quite unique to Expedia. So social events very much do act as a platform for some of our most important ideas and innovations. So to give you another example of something we've done recently, so last year we announced we're launching a rail company, and that was born out of our Thursday monthly drinks upstairs. So a group of product directors were together over a couple of beers, someone made a joke about it, the next day they sat down, they had a conversation about it, a couple of weeks later it was work in progress, and that's something we are really excited about launching this year. And again, it's one of these environments at Expedia where we're not expecting you to be changing your desk all day. I think because we are technically included in that e-commerce bracket, if you like, our office is very open plan. There's a lot of open space. We have ping pong tables upstairs. In the summer we have a roof terrace. You are allowed to very much go out and do your own thing. So what's happening in 2016? So I think this award for us is such a fantastic platform. Not only is it such a great accolade to know that our employees are thinking that we're doing something right, but we want to make Glassdoor a critical part of what we do now, particularly in terms of recruitment. So the Glassdoor process is now going to be part of our overall onboarding program. So what that means is that we're being very open with candidates. When you interview with us, we expect this to be a two-way process. Interview us, ask us why we should go to Expedia rather than going to a Facebook. We're going to encourage candidates to leave impartial feedback on the website about the interview process, what went well, what didn't go well, what should we change, etc. And on that note, our interview process is constantly evolving. So to give you an example, we're currently in talks of quite a major team move from a competitor. Rather than do our formal interview, what we are going to do is we're going to have basically an open hour. So they're going to come in, there'll be beers, pizza, etc. to make it a little bit more informal, and also to give people that real insight about what we do and how we do it. And that's all from me. Thanks, guys. Any questions?
Yay, thanks so much, Colin and Joe. Great info. I'm pulling up the question box right now. This is a good one. So, Colin, maybe you can start, but do you at Expedia openly encourage employees to leave a review on Glassdoor?
I think it's something which we are looking to do a little bit more. So something that I do, particularly because I looked after the Glassdoor win on behalf of the talent acquisition team here, so I'm very, very vocal about that. So we are expecting, it's not an expectation, we do encourage people, and particularly now when we have people come in to interview, we are encouraging them to leave interview feedback, because for us, Glassdoor, whilst it's such a great accolade to have, and we're so proud to have won the award this year, it's a long-term goal for us. We're looking at how we can use this to improve our interview structure. We're looking at this to look at the actual feedback and see, okay, well, we can see that people aren't happy with X, Y, Z. So it's something which very actively is encouraged. I'd say a little bit more in the States rather than the UK, but that's something which is being looked at this year.
Great. And then kind of a follow-up question to that is, are you using the information on Glassdoor kind of instead or alongside employee engagement surveys? Like, are you using that review information to identify problem areas in the company or morale or things like that?
Absolutely. So something which we do here is, again, we have our regular P2P program throughout the year, which gives our employees the opportunity to say that's working, that's not working. But we have a very good relationship with Glassdoor. We speak to them on a bi-weekly basis. We look impartially at the reviews. We do have the opportunity to respond to reviews as well, but something which we decided to do, rather than respond to reviews, we are going to be very open about the way we do this. We are going to send around, maybe once every couple of months, an email with the latest reviews and say, hey guys, if you want to have this conversation, you can do it anonymously with somebody else to pass it on. But we want to use that as actual valuable information, because to go on to Glassdoor and leave a review means that you're either super happy and super proud to work for Expedia, which is what we'd like, or you can see something we need to work on. So either way, we want to take that on board.
Absolutely. And going into that, there's a question about, what are best practices when you see a negative review, and should you respond? And I can take that question, as I will be running a webinar about how to respond to negative reviews in a couple weeks. So I hope the person that asked that joins. But absolutely, we encourage employers to respond to any and all employee reviews. I think that sometimes there's a negative connotation with getting a negative review. However, negative reviews aren't necessarily bad for business. In fact, if candidates see that an employer is taking the time to respond to a review, it can actually work to your advantage. They'll see that you're authentic, you're transparent, you care, you want to take the time to, embrace their feedback and actually, at least take the steps towards implementing change in that department or that part of the company. So, you can use those negative reviews to your advantage by crafting an absolutely perfect response. And I'll share with you the link to join that webinar. But we really encourage you to respond to any and all reviews, whether they be good or bad. So that's a great question. Joe, this one's for you. Let's see, for the UK Best Places to Work list, how many employees do you need to have to make the list?
That's a good question. So we've done the UK list for 2 years now, and each time it's been a minimum of 1,000 employees. That was the same as Best Places to Work US for the first few years, and then in the US we launched a kind of a small and medium-sized company list. So it's 1,000 employees at the moment, but we do reserve the right, if you like, to kind of have a look at the methodology each year and potentially, open that up to all sizes of companies, because we want to recognise best practice in all types of employers. So it's 1,000, or it certainly was 1,000 for the most recent list, but that may change in the future.
Perfect. There's a couple questions in here about whether or not you'll receive the materials after this webinar, and absolutely we'll share the recording with you so that you can share that with some colleagues or whoever you'd like. There's a question for you, Con. You talked about so many great initiatives and things you're implementing this year and last year to become a best place to work. How do you, excuse me, how do you get the buy-in from your executives or maybe, your CEO or your managing director? How do you get the buy-in from those high-level people to get on board with these initiatives to implement them at Expedia?
That's a great question. I think just look at the way the travel market has evolved in the last 20 years. So particularly in the UK, I remember when I was younger, there was teletext holidays, there was going to your local travel agent down in the high street, etc. So I think because the travel market is evolving so quickly, it's almost like we have that buy-in automatically. So yes, of course, there are going to be those questions around whether it's viable, and the rail product in particular is something which, whilst it came up so informally, it evolved very quickly, and it did take a lot of buy-in from the stakeholders to say, okay, this is actually going to work for us. But I think it's just a case of the market which we are working in. I think e-commerce in particular is so fast-paced that you have to keep up and you have to have that buy-in from your execs. But working with travel in particular means you need that +1. So you need to be open to new ideas. So to give you an example, I think one of our biggest in the speech marks challenges, if you like, is the likes of Airbnb. So we have addressed that recently with a recent acquisition which we made, but we can see that the vacation rentals property market is going to become bigger over the next couple of years. So that's something we are going to have to look at. You then look at companies like Google and Amazon, for example. Whilst they haven't actually done this, they have been threatening for a couple of years to push more into travel. So I think working for a company like Expedia means that you have to kind of be at the forefront of taking on new ideas, and you have to be open to new ideas, but also you need to be open to those ideas happening fairly quickly. So the rail piece, for example, happened in about 6 months. So you need to be open to that happening very quickly.
That's great. Great info. Joe, what is the best way to encourage employees to leave reviews without being super pushy?
Okay, there's a number of ways you can do that. I mean, one of the ways can be through kind of internal comms programs and that kind of thing, through regular touch bases with employees, like mid-year reviews, annual performance meetings, general kind of one-to-ones, that kind of stuff, annual company meetings. Another thing that I've seen some employers do, which is quite neat, which is to on a particular anniversary, so the anniversary of when you join the company, is to encourage people to leave a review. So there's a number of different ways, and it's perfectly okay to encourage people to leave reviews. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We absolutely encourage that. So yeah, we think it's a good thing to do. Just pick whichever tactic works for your company.
Perfect. And I'll add to that on our employer site, we have a great section of resources, and we actually have an ebook / template that is 8 employee engagement templates. So there's already handcrafted emails in there that you can shoot out to your company. You can send them to your executives, encourage them. There's some other great information and just different templates. There's posters you can print out and hang around your office in there. So if you do want to check those out, make sure you go to glassdoor.co.uk/employers. And there is an amazing resources section with a ton of ebooks and things around this topic. All right,
I think one thing I'd add to that as well, Shay, don't worry, one thing I'd add to that as well is that I think in terms of using Glassdoor to its full ability, you do need to have that engagement from your senior management team as well. So when we won the award, it came via PR, but then went right up to the very top. So we called them the TLT, which is the Travel Leadership Team. It went right up to them, and it was discussed with them, etc. And those guys are included on our monthly Glassdoor update as well. So they get an update every single month of the activity on Glassdoor, so new reviews, CEO approval, interview feedback, etc. And I think that you need to have that engagement from your actual senior management team to use Glassdoor to the fullest ability.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, let's take one more question, and then we can wrap this up. So this one's for Con. Can you share a couple examples about ways that you or other managers at your company are recognizing employees?
In terms of recognizing employees, there's a number of different things that we do. So I think our annual review cycle is very open, and it's something which we refer to throughout the year. We're very good on training. So when you join, the first thing you'll do is you'll sit down with your line manager and you'll have a discussion about not only what you're doing, but what you want to achieve. So what does 12 months look like? What does 2 years look like, etc. And then you'll be able to identify things to do. Something we are doing with our management level employees at the moment is we are sending them all on management refreshers, and that's something which is being rolled out across all different business units. So in terms of recognizing, we make sure that our benefits package as a whole is very competitive. So to give you an example, whilst benefits is the most important thing, we give everyone what we call a flexible allowance every year, which is an additional piece of compensation to spend on benefits. So we try to look after people and recognize their achievements.
Awesome. One more question is kind of regarding what the best way to get started on Glassdoor is, and I can answer that. At the end of this webinar, you will all receive follow-up email containing some of the resources we talked about, the recording, but you'll also receive a link to what we call at Glassdoor a free employer account, and without one of those, you can't even be in the running to become a best place to work. So first thing you should do is sign up for a free employer account. As I mentioned, it is free. It is the best way to get started with Glassdoor. You can post some basic information. You can post a couple photos, get the reviews starting to build, and that's really the best way to get started. So with that, I would like to thank our amazing speakers today. Thanks so much, Joe and Con. It was absolutely great information. We hope everybody on the line enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you all at one of our upcoming Glassdoor webinars. So thanks so much for taking time out of your afternoons, and we hope to see you again on a webinar soon. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.